Hello and welcome to Selection Tools in Photoshop. So today we're going to dig into selection tools, and to kind of give them a little brief overview, selection tools are the item that allows us to define the area in which we can work in Photoshop. Okay? So let me grab an image. I put this setup here, which I realize not everybody has Photoshop at home, but we have a handful that do. So I'm going to continue this as normal, and then those of you who don't have it at home, it would be a good idea to come in on Friday. Again, anytime on Fridays or after school between 1:45 and 3 o'clock. I will be here to help you walk you through those assignments so that you can get them done. Okay, so we're going to start with this image here, and I'm just going to right click on it and then open it in Adobe Photoshop 2020. Now the first thing we always do in Photoshop is we hold down Command and we hit J, and we duplicate our layers so that we can edit on the top layer, which is not damaging our original image. Okay, so selection tools. They really are these first three, which is, so we'll start with the rectangular marquee tool. Now the rectangular marquee tool allows us to create four-sided shapes, squares, rectangles. As far as I know, those are the only two we have. If I hold down Shift, I can create a constrained image, which means that all four sides will be the same. Okay, or I can just freehand it by letting go of Shift. So when I create a selection, a new selection here, what I've done is I've told Photoshop that's the area that I want to work in. So I'm going to select my brush by clicking B, and then I'm going to use the brush to paint. Now it's not painting on the building or the door or the cars or the lawn, because I created this selected area in which to draw. Whenever I make a selection, I have these little things, this little boundary box here, and if I zoom in enough, you can see that they kind of resemble marching ants. And in fact, Adobe has called those the marching ants. It's very fun. So whenever I see marching ants, that lets me know that I have a selected area. That is an active selection. And with that, that means that I can only draw inside there. That is the long and short of selection tools. Really, truly, that's the foundational basis for everything. If I don't have a selection tool, I can color wherever. If I create a selection tool, right, that means that I can only color inside or work inside that area. I will Command Z until I get back here. Now when I am done with a selection, I hit Command D. And if you're working on a PC, it's Control D or Command. Command is the Mac, and then Control is the Windows version, and Option for a Mac, Alt for a Windows machine. Okay, so if I right click on this, it will go from a rectangular. I can then select an elliptical, which is going to be a circle. And again, if I hold down Shift, which is the same for Mac or PC, it will allow me to create a perfectly, X by X circle. Okay, and then again, I can use my brush to color inside that area. Very neat. Okay, now when I have a selection tool active, in the upper left-hand corner, I've got these four icons. Boom, 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 boom. The first one is going to be a new selection. When that is selected, every time I make a selection, it's going to create a new one. Okay? So every time I go to draw a circle with my elliptical marquee tool, it's going to do a new one. If I select Add to Selection, that will allow me to add to my existing selected area. Right, and I can create some fun stuff. And actually, let's try this. Let's do a Mickey Mouse just for fun, right? So we'll do one perfect circle there, another one there, and another one. Let's put it on the same level, make it the same size here. And there we go. Hey, it's Mickey Mouse. Sweet. Okay. And that's how we do addition to selections. Okay. We go up to the upper left hand corner. We hit add to selection. Now there's this one as well, which is subtract from selection, and then the intersection of selections. Okay. So now, if with subtract from selection there, if I do this, it's going to take away the bottom half of Mickey's head there. And it's going to take away the ears, and eventually the whole thing. And then the intersection will, let's delete and do that. An intersecting selection, let's say I have this big one here, and I just want to get the chimney stack here. So I'm going to go back to my marquee tool, and then I'm going to select intersection. And then I'm going to go here, and where those two selections are intersecting, right there at the top, it will only make that a selection. And again, I can use my brush tool or my eraser or whatever. It's only ever going to work inside that selected area. Okay, those are our basic shapes, the square and the circle with the marquee tools. Then next up we have the lasso tool. I'm just going to quickly go through this because the last time I used the lasso tool was never. And so I'm going to show you how they work, but we're not really going to use these too frequently, if ever. We will use just the basic lasso tool, which is L on your keyboard. This is just a freehand selection tool. Okay, I can just grab this chimney stack and then loosely go around it. There we go. And I've got a new selection, right? There it is in the white, not the red. Okay, that is the lasso tool. If I go to the polygonal lasso tool, that allows me to click, and every time I click, it adds a waypoint, and every time I add a waypoint, it anchors. Okay, so it's a good way to do hard shapes or odd shapes, and it will, and again, every time you click, it adds that waypoint. So you can make a multi-sided selection. Again, useful, but not as useful as the tools that are coming. The next one is the magnetic lasso tool, which works very similarly, except instead of clicking, we just sort of drag around, and Photoshop will do kind of the heavy lifting for us. We can still click to give it a hint, but what it does is it detects the difference in pixels, and then sort of sucks up against it in a somewhat effective way. Again, see, it kind of misses things every once in a while. But whenever we're using these tools, we always have to close the loop. You'll see as I hover my cursor over here, the little circle will pop up. And that means that I've reached the beginning from the end, right? So I need to close that loop. Once I close that loop, it will give me marching ants, and then I can use my brush tool to color inside our area. Okay, again, I never use these two. I just use the lasso tool to just be like, hey, there it is, I got it, cool. To deselect an area, I should have said this much earlier, to deselect an area is Command or Control D. Very useful to remember, Command or Control D. Next up, and I'm just going to get a new image because this one's kind of, it's not really great for us. Let's do, we'll do the stop sign and then the phone booth. Okay, so we got the stop sign here. Okay, so the next few tools here are much smarter tools. We first have the magic wand. Now what the magic wand is going to do is it's going to reach around, search around, and find similarly shaped and colored pixels. Okay, so in this case I click the red of the stop sign, so I have marching ants all around the red of the stop sign. But when the smart brush here, when it got to the edge of the O, it stopped because it has white there, and it didn't get the inside of the O or the P. So if I were to color now, I'll use my brush and we'll use a nice orange color here. If I were to color here, I would get everything except the O and the P. Okay, I'm going to hit Command or Control Z to undo. Now I'm going to go back to my magic wand, which the keyboard shortcut is W. And since I have Add to Selection, I can just click inside the O and inside the P. Then I can hit B and go back to the brush. And now I'm going to get rid of all the red there. And we have a lovely orange stop sign to match our, fall festive colors here, right? Okay, that is the magic wand tool. Good for some, not for all, is the way that I probably would phrase what the magic wand does. A better tool, and I don't mean to say better, I shouldn't have said better, similar but equally useful, but different also. Here, I'll deselect this. Actually, I'll just get back to my red stop sign, deselect, and duplicate. The quick select tool. And the little blurb there says, makes a selection by finding and following the edges in an image. So, let's select outside of the stop sign here. Well, let's actually select, let's select the bush here, the tree, okay? So it's going to try and find the edges of the image. And I can overflow the edge just a little bit. And eventually I've got all the way down here to where it shows me that outline when I hit the Q button for quick mask. Q to quick mask. So always make sure you leave quick mask. Quick mask is just like, hey, there it is, and then you leave. But it spilled over a little bit, and that's okay, because eventually what I want to do here is just paint that white and get rid of that bush there. Okay? So the quick select tool finds the edges. It finds similar pixels in color, and then it tries to find hard edges, and then it stops there to make the selection. Okay? Next up, we've got the object select tool, and that's the one that I'm going to use with the the phone booth here. The object select tool kind of does everything that we've learned so far. It takes similarly colored pixels, it finds the hard edges of those different pixels, and then it outlines them in a very smart way. Okay? So I've got my telephone booth here, and then if I go to Object Selection, all I need to do for Object Select is draw a single parameter around it and then let it go. And you can see that I have ants marching now around my phone booth. And I can then, paint it green, the outline there. I can lower my opacity to like 20% and just give it a little green hue. Or I can, just ruin it, whatever. Or I can duplicate this. Now, whenever you have a selection made, like this, you can hit Command J, and that will duplicate whatever was in your selection, whatever was in your selected area. So in this case, I've got just this phone booth just chilling by itself now. Okay? So very useful tool is the Object Select tool. This was introduced with the 2020 version of Lightroom, and honestly I had high hopes for it, but it's not been as good or kind of as useful as I had hoped, but it still is absolutely useful. So let's just kind of have some fun with it, just for fun. I haven't tried this yet, so it'll be definitely a mixed bag, but we'll give it a shot. We got this picture of our very own Gabby Curtis, and I'm just going to add this phone booth to the salt flats just for fun, and just put it right there. Sweet. So there we go. And conversely, we can take Gabby out of this by hitting W, going to the Object Select, grabbing her there, and hitting Command J, and let's put her on the phone booth over here, because why not, right? And then I'm going to hit V on my keyboard, click that layer, and that will allow me to adjust her. We can put her, we can make a little mini Gabby and put her on the top of the phone booth there. Wow, hooray. Okay. So useful for grabbing objects. That's why it's called the Object Select tool. Useful for grabbing objects and quickly transporting them to other places. Now, the majority of the time, I live with the Quick Selection tool, which works really well. Oops, sorry, wrong layer. Which works really well to quickly grab images, or excuse me, objects or parts of an image, or a face, or some hair, or something like that. And it works okay. See, right there, I just missed essentially the top there, which I can go there. And if I were to duplicate this, it would give me essentially the same thing that we already had. Okay, so last but not least, in any selection mode that you have, let's get rid of the phone book there. In any selection tool that you have, so if I am under any of these three here, there's this thing up here at the top of your screen called Select and Mask. So if I click on Select and Mask, what it does is it allows me to refine a selection. I hit Escape because I meant to start a little previously here. I'm going to go to Object Select. I'm going to grab Gabby here. And then I'm going to go to Select and Mask. So I've got my initial selection made. But if we look between her arms here, we've got these clouds here that are coming with us. We don't want those. We want those to stay behind. So I'm going to enter Select and Mask. And yours by default will be on onion skin. But if you come up to the view mode, you can change the overlay. And then you can change the color that you see in the overlay to one that is much more contrasty. In my case, that purple was pretty fun, so we'll stick with that. And then you can change the opacity of that overlay. You can see a little preview out here. So I'll go to like 50%. All right. So when this is in a Select and Mask, which is where we are, I have a new set of tools here. This is the Quick Select brush that we already used. And then we have the Refine Edge brush tool. So I'm going to select this. And then all I'm going to do is go in and select that area between her arms there. And I'm going to click it a few times to try and get that hair back. And I'm actually going to make this smaller. And I'm going to Command Z and try that again. I'm going to make this smaller, zoom in a little bit, and maybe help Photoshop understand where I'm trying to grab a little bit better. And it's working okay. Sorry, Gabby, about the expression on your face there. Maybe let's make it bigger. I don't know. This is kind of funky. All right, so once we have our selection made, we can then change our output settings. And I like to output to a selection so that I can change it, but you can do new layers or whatever. And then I'm going to click OK. And then if I hit Command J, I've got this picture of Gabby just standing out at the salt flats. Now you can see right here and right here, it kind of gave me like a mid-tone adjustment. Wasn't great, but it works. Okay, so long and short of it, that is our selection tools. The whole point of selection tools is to make a selection. We can then cut that selection out, we can duplicate it, or we can simply work within the confined area that we made within that selection. Okay? So like I say, I know that we're starting off hot with Photoshop, and again, I want to reiterate the point that we do have Photoshop here in the lab. If you are apprehensive about coming in, I'm sitting here, it's 2:17 p.m. There is not a soul in the building. So if you do need to come in to use Photoshop for these assignments, that is an appropriate time. An hour to do that is definitely in the 2 to 3 o'clock range. Or you can come in on Fridays when attendance is much, much lower, as that is our sort of online work day. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to email me. Let me know if you need a Zoom call or something like that. If there's anything else you need, let me know, and we will try to make it happen. Otherwise, have a terrific day, and I will see you later.